You have $650 million and nobody knows it. Not your neighbors, not your barber, who's been cutting your hair every 5 weeks for 9 years and still asks if business is treading water. Not the woman at the bank who processes your transfers and calls you hun. You're not hiding exactly, you're just unremarkable on purpose, and the number itself didn't arrive with fireworks. It arrived in an email with the subject line Q2 net worth statement, final, while you were standing in the cereal aisle of a Kroger in Columbus, Ohio, trying to decide if your kid actually likes the honey kind or just says he does. This is what $650 million actually looks like from the inside. It starts, like most things do, with a self-storage facility off a highway exit nobody uses anymore. You were 29, you worked in claims adjusting, driving around after hailstorms, looking at roofs. One Tuesday, between appointments, you stopped at a gas station next to a storage facility with a "For Sale by Owner" sign that looked like it had been there since the Clinton administration. You called the number out of boredom more than ambition. The owner, a man named Earl, picked up on the second ring and told you the place had 140 units, was 71% occupied, and he wanted out because his knees couldn't take the Ohio winters anymore. You ran the numbers in your truck with a calculator app and a napkin. Gross rents around $9,400 a month. After insurance, property tax, a part-time manager, and basic upkeep, net income landed around $4,200 a month. Earl wanted $310,000 for the whole property. You didn't have that. What you had was a 401k you could borrow against, a decent credit score, and a willingness to ask a bank a question most people are too proud to ask. What if I'm wrong about all of this? The loan officer didn't laugh you out of the building. SBA 504 loan, 10% down, seller financing on part of the rest. You closed 6 weeks later with $31,000 of your own money and a co-signature from your father-in-law who made you promise, out loud, at his kitchen table, that you wouldn't do anything stupid with the storage units. You didn't. You raised occupancy to 89% in 14 months by doing almost nothing clever, just answering the phone fast, fixing the gate code system, and repainting the office so it didn't look abandoned. Net income climbed to $6,800 a month. You used that plus a HELOC on your own house to buy a second facility 18 months later, then a third. Nobody clapped. Nobody at your job knew. You kept adjusting hail claims for 4 more years after that first deal closed because the income was steady and the health insurance covered your daughter's asthma inhalers, and because $6,800 a month, while real, did not feel like the kind of money you quit a job over. This is the part nobody packages into a highlight reel. The years where the math is working, but the life looks identical. Same Honda Accord, same 2-bedroom house in Gahanna, same Sunday football at your brother-in-law's place, where you said almost nothing about what you were building, partly out of caution, partly because there wasn't much to say yet. A storage facility doesn't make a good story at a cookout. It makes a good spreadsheet. Your CPA's name is Denise. She's run a small practice out of a strip mall office for 22 years, sandwiched between a nail salon and a place that sells phone cases. She's seen every kind of mess. Sole proprietors who filed taxes on the backs of receipts, contractors who didn't know the difference between gross revenue and profit. She is not easily impressed. 3 years ago, you sat across from her folding table with a folder. She opened it, read for a while, and said, "This is the most boring asset list I've seen from anybody who isn't already on a yacht." You took that as the highest compliment of your professional life. Here's what was in the folder by then: 11 self-storage facilities across Ohio, Indiana, and western Pennsylvania, totaling just under 1,900 units. Combined, they generate roughly $2.1 million a year in gross rental income. After taxes, insurance, repairs, and management, you hired a regional manager 4 years ago, a woman named Priscilla who runs the whole portfolio better than you ever did. Net income lands around $890,000 a year. It comes in like clockwork because the need behind it never goes away. People downsize, people divorce, people inherit a dead relative's furniture and don't know what to do with it yet. Nobody disrupts a storage unit with an app. 3 car washes, the self-serve kind with bay stalls and vacuum stations, located off state highways in towns most people only pass through. You bought the first one out of a bankruptcy auction for $210,000. Combined, the 3 generate about $340,000 a year net. You've visited one of them exactly 4 times in the last 2 years, and 3 of those visits were because the vacuum system jammed. A mobile home park outside Zanesville. 64 lots. You own the land and the infrastructure. Residents own their own homes. Lot rent alone clears $410,000 a year, with almost no maintenance burden because you don't own the structures, just the dirt and the sewer line running under it. And a regional vending and micro-market company you bought 4 years ago from a guy retiring after 30 years in the business. It services break rooms in manufacturing plants and warehouses across 3 states. Annual revenue around $2.4 million. Thin margins, but dependable, the kind of business that loses 1 client a year and replaces it with 2. Denise asked, the way she always does if you're thinking about anything sexier. Real estate development, a franchise roll-up, maybe something in renewable energy with tax credits attached. You told her no. She nodded the way she always nods, like she respects the answer without fully buying into it. What Denise doesn't say out loud, but you both understand, is the actual logic underneath the boredom. Storage units, car washes, mobile home lots, vending machines. None of it is glamorous, and none of it is going anywhere. Recessions don't stop people from needing somewhere to put their furniture. A new app in Silicon Valley isn't going to disrupt a sewer line under a mobile home park. There's no venture-backed competitor about to out-innovate a car wash off Route 30. You drive a 2018 Toyota Highlander with 96,000 miles on it. The check engine light came on 8 months ago for an emission sensor you still haven't replaced because it doesn't affect how it drives. You wear a fleece vest from Costco that you bought a 3-pack of in 3 different years because it's the only one that fits right. At your daughter's soccer games, another parent, a guy who runs a regional HVAC franchise and never stops talking about it, once asked what you do, and you said, couple of storage units and some vending machines, and watched his eyes do the math and lose interest within 4 seconds. He turned back to talking about his boat. That moment is worth more than anything else that happened at that soccer game. Because the second someone underestimates you, they stop paying attention to you. And the second they stop paying attention, you get your whole life back. People assume stealth wealth is about humility. Sometimes it is, for some people. For you, it's structural. The Highlander isn't a statement, it's a tool. It starts every morning, it survives Ohio winters, and it gets you 0 attention in any parking lot in the state. The average new car payment in the US right now is north of $700 a month. You haven't made a car payment in 6 years. Every dollar that isn't going to a depreciating asset is going somewhere that compounds instead. Your house is the same story. A 4-bedroom colonial you bought 14 years ago. Mortgage paid off 3 years back. The neighbors think you do fine. They're not wrong, they're just missing several zeros and a decimal point. What you learned, slower than you'd like to admit, is that visibility has a cost that has nothing to do with money. The moment people know what you have, they stop relating to you and start relating to it. Your cousin you haven't heard from in 5 years finds a reason to text. Someone from church mentions a ground floor opportunity. Your brother-in-law starts talking about a deal that just needs a little capital to get moving. Your younger brother, Pete, called you 8 months ago. Not about money at first, just checking in, the way he does every couple weeks. But by the end of the call, it came out. He'd been running a small landscaping crew for 3 years, good reputation, steady clients, and he wanted to buy a second truck and hire 2 more guys to take on commercial contracts. He needed $38,000. You could have Venmoed it before he finished the sentence. $38,000 against your portfolio is roughly 11 days of cash flow. It wouldn't have registered as a sacrifice in any sense of the word. You didn't send it. Instead, you drove out the following Saturday and sat at his kitchen table with his invoices and his bank statements spread out between you, and you spent 3 hours going through his numbers the way Denise once went through yours. You found he was underpricing commercial jobs by almost 20% because he was still quoting off residential rates. You asked him about insurance liability on commercial properties, which he hadn't fully looked into. You asked what happens if a client pays net 60 instead of on the spot, and whether he had the cash cushion to survive that gap. He didn't have answers to most of it, not because he isn't smart, because nobody had ever sat across from him and asked. You went back the next 2 Saturdays. By the end of it, Pete had requoted his commercial pricing, found a small business line of credit through his local credit union, and didn't need your $38,000 at all. He bought the second truck 4 months later with his own financing. He called you the night he picked it up, and he was loud and a little emotional in a way Pete almost never is. He said he couldn't have figured it out without you. You never told him what you could have just handed him. You probably never will. That's not modesty. It's an understanding of what the story needed to be. His, built by his decisions, not yours. But there are rooms in your life nobody gets invited into. That part never gets easier. It's not the secrecy itself. You made peace with that years ago. It's the specific weight of sitting across from someone you love, watching them carry a problem you could remove in under a minute, and knowing that removing it would actually make things worse for them in the long run. The email with the $650 million figure arrived while you were standing in front of a cereal display, holding two boxes, one in each hand. You read the number twice. A stock boy walked past with a pallet jack. Nobody looked at you. The fluorescent lights didn't flicker. Nothing in the store acknowledged what had just happened on the screen in your hand, because nothing needed to. You replied to Denise with 4 words, "Looks right, thanks." Then you put the honey cereal in the cart because your kid does actually like it. He just won't admit it in front of his friends. You paid $61.40 at self-checkout. You didn't use a rewards app because you can never remember the password. 11 years ago, you sat in a truck outside a storage facility and felt something when the first $4,200 net income hit your account. Not pride exactly, not disbelief either, something quieter than both. Standing in that cereal aisle, you feel the exact same thing, just with 9 more zeros attached. That's the part that took you over a decade to actually understand. The feeling was never about the number. It was about the architecture. The proof that something you built with a calculator and a napkin in a gas station parking lot kept running year after year, completely uninterested in whether anyone was watching. Tomorrow, the storage gate code system will need a software update. Priscilla will email about a tenant dispute over a late fee. Pete's second truck will be out on a job by 7 a.m. Nothing about the outside of your life changes tomorrow either. But somewhere this week, you'll watch somebody finance a car they can't afford to look like they've already made it. And you'll understand something you couldn't have put into words back when you were still adjusting hail claims for a living. That the performance of wealth and the architecture of it almost never live in the same person at the same time.